Good morning, committee. House Bill 2759 is the bill modifying the definition of veteran and disabled veteran, and it creates a common definition for both of those terms, as well as clarifying disability evaluations for benefits granted to disabled veterans.
I do believe we have a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morgon. That's Swedish for good morning. I would move that when the committee pass House Bill 2759 out favorably.
Do you have a second? Second by Representative Dotson. Any discussion? Representative Dotson?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I do have an amendment. If you remember when the revisor was discussing this on Tuesday, we had one minor change. So we have to make an amendment, and this is the comma, if you remember. So on page 9, down at line 26, they're just going to insert a comma between Navy and Marine.
Extremely important.
You never want to mix those two together. So
we have a second. Representative Hill. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. I guess that would be amendment. Back on the bill. All in favor of the bill? Oh, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've discussed this. We show such strong support from all of our military, and I think we all know that this is what we can do to help our vets down the line. So I would close and move my motion.
Thank you. All in favor of the amendment as amendment, the motion as amendment. Right. Do I have a second? Okay, renew your second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The bill has passed. Now, for our guests today, I'd like to welcome Executive Director of Veteran Affairs Office, Bill Turner, or General Turner.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you again for allowing us to come. I think really this is probably more a requirement, but I appreciate the opportunity to appear today and to share an update. This update primarily is focused on and covers a period dating back. This is for the fiscal year 23, starting from 1 July of 22 and going through 30 June of 23. So some of the numbers and all the numbers that you see in the reports that we and some of the accompanying data are focused on that time period, and where we can provide updates, at least kind of offer some trends on where we're going in the first 6 months of this fiscal year. I'll do that, and I'll discuss that. But to orient you a little bit to some of the things that we've put in the packet there, we have it's a 7 or 8 page document that covers a report on what we've done for that annual period. We've also included a presentation that we made to the Senate Ways and Means Committee. It's an update on the new veterans home that's going to be here in Topeka. So you'll see that as a separate brief that has some more details. I'll talk a little bit about where we're at with that, but that offers you a little bit more substance, I guess, behind that. There's also a presentation that we also shared with the Senate Ways and Means that was focused on our nursing shortages and kind of where we're at with that, to offer an update on the critical shortages that we're experiencing out at our veterans homes. So I offer that to you to have for your reference in the future. And then we've also offered an 11 by 17, a little bit larger schematic, if you will, the latest design of our new veterans home. And I can touch on that, or I'm happy to answer questions on that. But again, I'll talk to that a little bit, but we tried to offer you a little bit bigger version of that so that you could see that. But again, Bill Turner, Director of the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs, thank you again for allowing us to be here. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do for the citizens of our state, and more so what you've done to support our veterans across the state. I see many of you from time to time throughout the year visiting our facilities, at the homes, at the cemeteries, at various events that we've had, or at events for constituents in your area, or just through common routine business, what we've done, where you've brought to my attention or our team's attention, you've brought to our attention things that needed to be fixed or needed to be worked on or to be examined or researched further. And we appreciate that very much. We welcome that. And we do our very best to get on those and tackle those challenges to try to get resolution where we can. And then lastly is to close the loop back with you. I think that's important so that you know what has been done or what has not been done and what actions that we're taking to try to follow through on that. I guess so throughout my years in the Army and growing up, I've had a number of mentors, advisors, if you will, friends, folks that have been able to help kind of steer me or guide me. And I think many of you know this from the past, but I had General Dotson, who I had worked 4 years ago, when a young captain in the Army, and had reported to his unit. But then fast forward here to 2016, 2018 time period when I'm getting ready to depart military service, and I'm retiring. And his piece of advice to me at that time was, you may not know what you're going to do or where you're going to do it, or you may not have come to that resolution yet in your life on what you want to do following your service in the Army. But one of the most important things that you need to do or maintain is a schedule, a routine, a sense of purpose each day, because otherwise the days will get away from you and you're going to waste days and you're going to waste your time. And you're going to wake up one day and you're going to say, wow, what did I get done this week? Or what have we done? What have we done to really progress in life? And so I kind of carry that with me. It stuck with me for a while. Sir, I failed miserably many times with that. I'll wholeheartedly admit that. And the team, Eric Roller, Rob Light, that are here with me, that work directly with me, and other folks that are back in our office and throughout the state will tell you that I can become just as scatterbrained and haphazard as the best of them in chasing down things and trying to, chase the rabbit down the hole to fix things. And it takes a lot of work to do, but when you can do that and you can establish those systems and have that routine, it just makes us so much more efficient and effective. And that's kind of the theme that I've tried to follow as we go about, running our day-to-day operations and having a distant aim point for what we want to do in our organization. The better that we can have the systems in place, because we experience quite a bit of turnover from time to time in our homes, with our veteran service representatives in our cemeteries. But if you can have those systems in place and something that you can latch onto and you have some continuity there, then it's easier to pick up and continue. So that's very important to us. So our goals and objectives really have remained unchanged. I mean, our primary purposes are to inform, advise, assist our veterans and their family members and the benefits, healthcare opportunities that they are afforded, healthcare at the homes, and then finally, really to focus on and help them with, a dignified interment as a final resting place at our state veteran cemeteries. And in so doing, so we have the different areas that we focus on with veteran services, with our cemeteries programs, to do that, as well as at each of the homes. But we always want to try to improve our position. We're always seeking for ways that we can, we take a look, observe, assess. We don't want to become stagnant. So we're trying to find ways to do that. I'm going to start with the cemeteries program. Typically, it always comes to be the last thing that we talk about and look at, and I don't want to give it short shrift here today. But we have Heidi Goff, who is our cemetery program manager, and she does tremendous work for us. Extraordinary lady, leads a team of about 20 people across the state that run 4 cemeteries. So you have approximately 2 to 3 staff, or 2 to 3 or 4 maybe at each of the respective cemeteries based on the volume, what they do there. You have a cemetery director at a cemetery. You have an assistant that helps to run the administrative portion of that and coordinate with the funeral homes, the families, the folks like the Veterans of Foreign Wars and American Legion that are here with us today that provide honor guards for those services, as well as active service groups that do that when they're able to do it as well. So they do a lot of that coordination out front, the kind of the public facing, if you will. And then you typically have 2 or 3 equipment operators at each one of the cemeteries, the 4 cemeteries, and they're managing the property. They have very strict standards from the National Cemeteries Administration, and they do wonderful, wonderful work for us to maintain those properties. If you get a chance to see it, I would encourage it. They're beautiful, they're dignified, and I think we are able to execute those operations in a respectful way. If I may, I mean, so back in 2020, 2021, in that time period, we were probably averaging about 340 to 360 interments a year. Now, of course, you get to look in context. That's kind of the COVID period. And so you had, well, despite the number of illnesses and the passings that we experienced, we had fewer people that were being interred in our state veteran cemeteries. The last 2 years, we've been averaging about 430 to 440 interments. So it's going up by about 70 or 80 a year. And this year, we're on pace to probably execute over 450 interments. Of that, about 70 to 75% of those are veterans that are being interred. The others are eligible spouses and dependents of those individuals. But I just wanted to offer a little bit of context of what they're doing and the workload that they are under to do these. What we have, our Fort Dodge Cemetery, I'm just going to go through a few of the things, a few of the programs, accomplishments, achievements, and programs that they are doing out there so that you're aware of it. So I like to be, I mean, you all hold us accountable, and I just want to try to report out to you on some of these things that are happening out there. The Fort Dodge Cemetery received an award this year from the Deputy Undersecretary of the National Cemetery Administration. They were awarded a Operational Excellence Award. They are one of 2 cemeteries in the nation that received that award this past year for their performance during one of the surveys that was done. Just great work. Again, that's a testament there to our director out there that's running that cemetery and what they've done. They did establish a program this past year where they went about engaging with funeral directors across the state. So they did about 7 or 8 different sessions across the state where they met with funeral directors, coordinated with them, informing them of our services, who was eligible, trying to help, again, making sure that folks understood out there, and so they could help communicate to families across the state that this resource is available to those that are eligible. Again, very important thing to do. Eric and Heidi both went on those tours around the state. I was able to go to a couple of them. They just, again, great input. Probably at each one of these 7 or 8 sessions, you probably had 40, 45 people in there from different funeral homes there to hear that. We also executed participation, if you will, in various resource fairs, PACT Act fairs, things of this nature, where we would have representatives from the cemeteries be on location to be able to help provide information to veterans and their families. We conducted our first annual training event, if you will. So Heidi put together, working with Rob and Eric, they put together a training program for about a 2-day period to bring together our operators so they could kind of understand all the compliancy issues they have to do. They learned best practices. And we did this with the Leavenworth National Cemetery up in Leavenworth. So we're able to kind of share ideas with those folks, what equipment they're using, what techniques they use, what works better for certain things. And it was really eye-opening. It was very good for our folks to do that. Plus, just the networking and the shared partnership was key for them. They've also made a couple purchases, some key equipment. We've updated from early 2000s, some of the excavators. We bought one and we're buying another one this year that will help, again, to enhance our operations. The one last year, we actually, there was a fracture in the arm and they responded. I'm very proud of what the team did. I was at the Fort Riley Cemetery out by the airport there in Manhattan. And they had experienced this while they were preparing a gravesite that day, and they immediately were able to go out to rent a piece of equipment from a nearby location. I mean, it was seamless to the family involved, and they were able to execute the service. So, I mean, these are folks that were being adaptable, flexible, quick thinking to make this happen. So that was, something, a source of great pride for us. There is a columbarium wall that is being built with federal grant money out at Fort Dodge. It's about 160 niches that's being constructed out there. They're probably about 80% done with that, and we expect it to be done here in April. And we'll do a ribbon cutting in May with our Memorial Day ceremonies that will be conducted. We're going to do them in conjunction with one another out at Dodge. They're also in the bid process right now to construct a scattering garden. They're the one cemetery in the state that does not have a scattering garden for ashes, and they are in the bid process right now for that piece. And we're good with the funding for these things, not an issue. And then there's planning in place right now to place a couple of doors on two of the cemeteries, the committal shelters, to put where they don't have doors on the side. And as you can imagine here, as you well appreciate, the extreme weather conditions that we have, and being able to have doors on the side to help block the wind and stuff for families as they are going to these cemeteries for their services. So that's a huge thing. And then the final thing I kind of allude to, the Memorial Day and the wreaths across America. Again, we just get incredible support from the local communities. I've been to several of these. Our staff, we can split up. We all go to support one another, and we probably have some in the neighborhood of 200 to 350 folks at any given cemetery on those days to support those activities. For Wreaths Across America, it ranges from a lot of youth programs to other community folks there, and then more broadly at the Memorial Day is kind of the peak time for veterans to be able to come there and pay their respects, as well as members of the community. At each of those, again, we get great support from all of our veteran support service organizations. Most notably is the VFW and the American Legion folks that come out during those ceremonies. They assist with security, believe it or not. They assist kids with parking, with the construct of it. They offer guest speakers for us. They greet folks, they help seat folks, they help tend to people out there, and they do all this as volunteers that are working with us. So we are very appreciative and have great gratitude for all that they do on those days. They're proudly standing with us there for all of those. For the homes, currently we have a census of about 200 people that are residing in our homes. We have about 108 at our home down in Winfield, and roughly about 91, 92 out at Fort Dodge. This is a number that's come up back in 2021. We were probably around 175. We got up to about 180, 185. Now we're up over 200, right around 200. It fluctuates right now. We've kind of plateaued there for the last 3 or 4 months. But again, this is folks coming out of COVID. I think it's us trying to get the word out there. It's the performance of these homes. It's the increase in staffing that they are experiencing. That's been a tremendous boost to us, and many thanks to each of you for that as well, for the increases that we've been able to receive in salaries and wages for these folks. For our critical care providers, our staffing is probably up from about 65%, 70% staffing. We're probably closer to about 85% right now across the board there overall. We may be down about 80% in our critical care provider areas. So they are, and what that does is it reduces our reliance on our temp agency staffing and having to go out to get folks to come in and hire them to come in and perform these responsibilities. It does alleviate a lot of the stress on the leadership at these homes. I will tell you that there's a lot of, to borrow a term, there's a lot of duck paddling beneath the surface every day at these homes when somebody calls in, is not able to report, or they're short folks, and they're running the phone lines then. And it's a 5-alarm fire to get out to the 4 or 5 staff temp agencies that they use, or to seek folks to work their overtime where possible. And then it also stabilizes that environment for our residents, which is probably, indirectly is the most valuable byproduct of this, because now they're seeing the same caregiver day after day over time. They're comfortable with them. They understand their care requirements. They understand kind of the idiosyncrasies of these individuals, and it really lessens the stress for the resident as well. And so they're very happy with that and very proud of that. So we thank you for that. I talked about the temp agency piece. We talked about kind of the reduction with the temp agency folks. Turnover has come down some, but it still remains something we watch closely. We're probably still in the 30 to 35% turnover rate for our staff employees at the homes. Of note, we have our facility down at Winfield now has been a 5-star facility, like 7 of the last 8 quarters, which is really is a remarkable achievement. So Kay for Appeal, who is our superintendent, and his team of folks down there have just done incredible work. They're working in this repurposed former state hospital, and they just do a great job down there and taking care of those folks, keeping it very clean, orderly, efficient, caring for the residents. I think if you go down there and speak with the residents, and we encourage you to come visit us, you'll find, I think, that they are very well taken care of. Over at the Kansas Soldiers Home, they have increased their rating. It's a 3-star rating right now, and we're continuing to. We identify the areas where we have not done as well in some of the areas, and we are making strides to address those and to get those up to speed. Some of that is related to some of the decreases in staffing that we'd experienced, but as we get more staff on board now out there, we are seeing signs of that improving greatly. And again, hats off there to Ron Fries, who is our acting superintendent. He was a clinical director out there. And now for about the last 8-9 months, he has been performing both duties as the clinical director running operations and the acting superintendent. So again, tough business, and he's doing a great job getting around to balance, all the needs out there and the requirements that he does. And so we've recently extended an offer for somebody there to take over the role of superintendent. But that's pending right now in that phase. But again, they all do great things out there at that. A couple of things you're going to see in the report, there's some pictures there, some of the things that we've done infrastructure wise to improve the quality of life for these folks. Down at the Veterans Home, you'll see there's a new bathhouse. They also have a new covered walkway for residents and their families to be able to, when they come into the building or they're moving in between different different wings of the residence location. So that helps as well. It gets pretty darn hot, or the extreme weather again with the rain, the snow, things of that nature. This is helping a lot for people to be able to move more freely. Kind of opens up the lines of communication there between the residents being able to move back and forth. The bathhouse is just is a beautiful thing, and again, it helps the staff being able to have these nice resources to be able to use and to demonstrate our commitment and our care for our residents. Out at Dodge, we are focusing on some of the cottages out there and being able to offer some refinements and to kind of develop a punch list, if you will, and to go about get those things fixed for those folks out there in the cottages with our maintenance team that's there. And then as well, there are some things that are being done out there to upgrade some of their security systems with their door locks, access locks, where they'd had some challenges with a wireless system or wiring this thing in. So they'll be able to more safely, securely move from one area to another without having something there that might inhibit their ability to do that. In the future, they are looking at some generator systems for the homes, and then also I'll talk a little bit at the end as I close out about a governor's recommendation and the money that we have to look at some select demo for our buildings out at Dodge, those that are in pretty great state of disrepair and they're really a security safety hindrance to us right now, or a risk. Veteran services. You'll see there in the report, we have, as a state, we get a GDX report. It's like a graphical distribution report from the VA that indicates that in Kansas, we received a little bit over, like $2.15 billion, I believe, is what we get back in federal funds. And that's split amongst a number of different areas. We get a little over $1 billion in compensation and pension or benefits for veterans. And then there's another roughly $1 billion that's there for healthcare. And then there's some other little bit lesser categories, somewhere around 87 million for education, GI Bill, things like that are coming in for veterans and soldiers that are going to school. And then there's also, to a lesser amount, roughly about $1 million in some construction things that are ongoing there for the state. But I think it's good to know that context overall. Now, so the $1 billion, to break that down a little bit further, that is being received for compensation and benefits. There are a number of organizations and people that do this. I mean, it ranges from the individual who signs on and attempts to navigate through the VA system, which we highly discourage. We ask that they come to us that are trained in this, and the experts that you have from the various veteran service organizations, as well as our veteran service reps in our organization, to help them navigate that. But it ranges from that. You have some lawyer folks that are doing it, and you have in this case, other veteran service organizations that are accredited and are trained to do it as well. but we are most closely kind of affiliated right now with VFW and American Legion, who perform these services for us as part of our Veterans Claims Assistance Program grant funding that we provide to the homes at Leavenworth, Wichita, and Topeka, the VA med centers. So they operate within there. They each have approximately 3 veterans service officers, they call them, in their organizations. In Wichita, 2 up in Leavenworth, and 2 in Topeka, each one. And they get a tremendous influx of veterans that come there, as you might imagine. A lot of your veterans are receiving their care at those 3 facilities. They come in there and do that. And so we together and collectively are attributable for, roughly $278 million of that 1 billion. And actually it's probably more. And we're working on the reporting processes on how to refine that and just how we can make sure that our guys are getting really the appropriate credits. And we can talk about that a little bit more later. So again, we're working closely with these groups. Our staffing right now is going up, is really at an all-time high for us. Our veteran service reps, when I had first arrived here, I want to say, Eric, they were short 5 positions that had not been filled and not been funded. Since then, that has been funded. The mobile services organization is now funded. So we have 3 mobile trucks and a team of folks there that go out, and they are responding out in the local environments, local communities, parking at Walmarts, at other locations to make a presence, to help distribute information and paraphernalia to our veterans to make them aware of what services they are eligible for. And then in addition, then we have the veteran service reps, and those positions are all filled right now throughout the state. So our veteran service reps from the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs are geographically distributed across the state. And we also have, again, we work in close partnership with Veterans of Foreign Wars and American Legion on their operations. And we all work closely together where we can assist one another. We do. They have a tremendous network in their organizations across the state. They might speak to that a little bit when they're here with me today. So we just reap tremendous benefits from that. So even though they have those folks that are focused at those medical centers, they have this network that is extended throughout the state at all their various posts. And they have their people that are helping to steer veterans out there across the state back to them. And then where possible, or where it's more convenient or just more efficient, they will help to steer them to us at our locations out there where they're out there in their neighborhoods. So that is all much goodness. Back in FY22, for relative terms, there were about a little over 10,000 claims that were done in our state. And this past year in 23 has risen up to 14,000. So you see this like 40% increase in claims that are being adjudicated or being processed. We haven't seen a lot of the money amounts from some of that stuff yet, because it still takes about 4 months to get these adjudicated. And some of these things go back and forth several times. It's an iterative process for our veterans to get those things adjudicated. And then we'll probably see more and more, increases as we go forward. A lot of the increases are attributed to the PACT Act. For those that are following that was introduced back on August 9th of 22. And that is about the toxic exposure and the screenings that are going on, and the 26 presumptives out there for our veterans that if they exhibit these symptoms, and having these presumptives that place them in these areas of operations. So that is kind of the impetus, if you will, behind the increase in a lot of the claims processes that we were seeing. So not all of these are necessarily, our commitment in this thing is to make sure we help tell the narrative for the veteran. We help tell the story for them. And then it goes to other adjudicators. And we work closely with the regional VA office here in Kansas, and down in Wichita with Miss Donna Meyer-Hickel that runs that operation. And then we also are working closely with the VA med centers at the Dole Center with Jeff Herndon down there, with Shelley Sweeney here up in Leavenworth. And we work closely as a team as we execute various PACT Act fairs, resource fairs, and things of that nature, the bigger items across the state. Inclusive in that, we've done over 600 engagements, and the engagements also include our itinerant travel. So as you have a veteran service rep out in various locations out in Southwest Kansas, Northern Kansas, they travel throughout the month to different locations, and that they're on a kind of a recurring schedule there. So veterans know, and this predictability there, they can come in and meet with them there at those locations. So we do our very best to reach out to those areas where we can to make ourselves available to them. So since the PACT Act has been started back in that August of 22, so now we're talking about an 18-month period, not that 1 year, we've executed upward of about 26,000 claims, and a little over 11,000, closer to 12,000 claims are attributable to the PACT Act. The other 14,000 are other claims, just other areas. And again, we talk about claims and we talk about that. I mean, it does become complex from time to time. There may be a number of things that go into this, a number of various symptoms or ailments that a veteran may be experiencing. And again, like I said, it's an iterative process to go back and forth to help build that documentation, to help build that narrative for the caregivers and the adjudicators so that they can see that clearly and understand what the veteran's trying to communicate there. If I can, I apologize. I just wanted to show a couple of things here. So these are, some of you may have seen this before, but these are books that are used in the training. So we conduct training twice a year, about every 6 months. We bring together our veteran service reps, and we have also participation from other groups that come out, and they're doing training as well on these things. So this is the Veterans Benefits Manual. This is the 22-23 edition. And you can see the book and tab in here, and this goes through all the various kind of the different, I'm trying to think, contingencies and to cover that for all a veteran's case. So they use this, obviously, they're not reading this thing, but they do develop a familiarization with these so that they can go out and make the calls for the veterans. This is the federal laws and regulations that govern it from the federal VA. Again, a lot of things here for us to make sure that we're in compliance with. And so I guess I just shared that with you so that you understand kind of the complexity of what each of these individuals are doing out there as they're working with the vets. And then I call this the Reader's Digest version, or it's the Veterans Affairs and what every veteran should know. This is the Bill Turner version, what I can get my teeth around and understand. It's a quick reference guide. But as this might introduce some topics and do some things, but if you really want to get into the specifics of it, then you may have to consult some other areas here to be able to do that. So very, very critical that they are able to go out and do those things. Lastly, I talked about the new home, and like I said, we're on track with that. We have the $17.2 million that's been appropriated to us from the state. We are continuing to drive on with our A&E teams for the building and construction. We have an application in for the federal grant, which is we're seeking $32 million there from that. Last year, we were on the priority group list, but we were on priority group 8. We have been talking with them and the group up there at the VA, and they've assured us that we will be on priority group 1, but we are likely to be in the 80s. Right now, what they are projecting is that only the top four projects will be funded. They're looking at about $160 million that they are going to receive at the federal level, and they're going to be able to parse that out to 4 projects. So anything that we can do to help, to continue to encourage our federal partners there and teams to go out and to do that is very helpful. I do engage from time to time, as do others on our staff, with our federal delegation to meet with them, primarily probably with Senator Moran as he goes about engaging with the federal VA. So we do that. But we are on track. We just finished the schematic design. We are now into design development. We're happy to, if you're interested, to have us, we can come by and give you more details. But we are at the point now where tomorrow we're going to go through all the different rooms of the facility. We're looking at all the furniture, all the equipment, the physical therapy, occupational therapy items, the pharmacy, the desk, the chairs, and just everything. It's kind of, thank God I got Eric and Rob here helping to keep straight on that, as well as Kaper is kind of leading our expertise. And we are reaching out to other states, just so you know, too, to seek their guidance and their lessons learned from states that have recently constructed homes, just to make sure that we're not going down a path that we're seeing from our side. We're trying to make sure we have different perspectives so we have making informed decisions. So I think that's the last piece, talking about is budget wise. So we are looking at with the governor's recommendation for the IT support is for us to be able to tie in with OITS, with Office 365, and established email exchange servers at each of our homes. Right now they have independent email servers that have gone beyond their contracts or warranties, if you will. And so we are looking to tie in with OITS. It'll give us kind of a broader bench to support us. And it also offers us some capabilities that we didn't have. And so it gives us a little bit more robust team to help support our IT operations and that security. We're also looking at hiring a homes director or somebody that can help us oversee all 3 homes at that point, help us oversee directly the build, the construct of the home that we are building. And then also just kind of with the compliance with, the Centers for Medicaid, Medicare Services, CMS, the VA, all the different requirements that we have to help kind of build some standardization in there across 3 homes so that we're doing things likewise and helping to keep them on top of all the various requirements that they have. Also, and there is a individual procurement officer. We have probably over 150 contracts between the various programs. And this will give us somebody that can help focus our efforts there to keep us straight with the contracts and the budgeting for the like. We have also looking at we have updated. Rob has done a great job updating our COOP program, so it helps us to maintain this as a governor directive for our agencies. And we are doing very well with that. And we're right now in the process of planning to do a rehearsal with that here, probably in the next 45, 60 days, just to be able to kind of run a dry run of what we have put together. But we have a very detailed plan that will allow us to continue operations in the event of a catastrophic, man-made or natural incident that would hit us or take down power, or do certain things to make sure that we can continue to provide support for folks. With that, I am very happy and proud to bring up Mr. Schwarzkopf, if you will. So he's going to come up. So we have leadership that we coordinate with here for the VFW and the American Legion. Mr. Herb Schwarzkopf with VFW, Mr. Jimmy Foster from American Legion, a number of other supporters here that you see out in the audience that we work with nearly daily, certainly weekly. We work with on this program, in the VCAP program. They can speak to you a little bit more about their services, and then when they're done, I have just a couple comments sort of to close out, if I may.
Thank you. And please state your name and your.
Herb Schwarzkopf, Kansas VFW Adjutant Quartermaster. And I don't know why I'm so nervous. I mean, I'm here every meeting, and it's simple sitting out there. And I think you brought that up last week when you got up and testified a little bit different when you get here, because and I will warn you that sometimes when I get nervous, I have a dyslexic tongue. So you might want to look at here to make sure that what I say is correct, because what is here is correct. Okay. So anyhow, again, good morning, and for Chairman Ellis, guten Morgen. And I told him earlier this morning the first time that I had not heard him say guten Morgen to all of you was last Tuesday, and because usually that's how he also addresses you. So, but anyhow, good morning, Chairman Ellis, Vice Chairman Dotson, Ranking Minority Member Weigel, and fellow veterans and military committee members. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to testify this morning on the VCAP grant, the Veterans Claims Assistance Program, and its importance to the veterans of the state of Kansas and to the economy of the state of Kansas. This past calendar year of 2023, Kansas VFW service officers assisted Kansas veterans to the amount of $249,678,859 in claims received by these veterans. The cost to the state of Kansas to procure these dollars was $350,000, our share of the VCAP grant. And it was received by Kansas VFW through the KCVL that administers it, the VCAP grant. Secondly, I want to thank you for continuing what your predecessors started in 2006 and probably a little bit before that. And voting as a House unit last year, to raise the amount to $425,000 this year. And I know that you will approve in the Kansas House the governor's budget proposal this year, which will make the total amount of funds available for Kansas VFW $500,000 retroactive to July 1st of 2023. When you pass this budget proposal, the Kansas American Legion will receive a likewise amount. This increase is needed to properly equip and compensate our service officers who have been swamped with claim filings requests since the passage of the PACT Act a little over a year ago. Let's review a little history of the VCAP grant. It was started in fiscal year 2007 to provide a way for veterans, especially Kansas veterans, to file claims for service-connected disabilities that would not cost them an arm and a leg. This grant allows a veteran the opportunity to file a claim at no cost to themselves if they file it through Veteran Service Offices, VSOs, that complied with the provisions in Statute 73-1234. There are only 2 VSOs that complied, and that was the Kansas American Legion and Kansas VFW. And they are the only 2 that have complied to date. The original total amount was $400,000, and then that was increased a few years later to $500,000, which made the amount $250,000 for each VSO. In early fiscal year 2022, then Governor Brownback cut the amount by 10%, or $25,000. And then a few months later, in February of 2012, the governor cut it again by another $25,000 for each VSO, making their total for each VSO at $200,000. Wayne Bullock, who was then the deputy director of the KCVAO and the Kansas VFW quartermaster, got together and went to visit with the governor and his staff with all the records that they had. And we showed the governor that the VFW would not be able to uphold its financial obligations to its staff if these cuts were upheld. Most importantly, the VFW showed the governor the amount of community service that Kansas VFW posts had done as a whole to that point, which is listed in line B4 in the statute, which is in your testimony that you have, and it's highlighted, which you have as part of the documents provided with his testimony. This so impressed the governor that he reinstated the full amount of $250,000 for each VSO with the comment, "Keep doing this important work in your communities." He also said, "I'll be watching this, and you better stand tall." And I would also like to just do a quick side note on this to go along with what General Turner said just a little bit ago about the VFW and the American Legion working at funerals and stuff like that. Where I come from out in western Kansas, numbers are getting less and less, and I'm sure it's that way in the whole state of our VSOs. And so we work together. When there's a funeral out there, there's not enough VFW or American Legion singularly to handle a funeral properly and get to properly work it. So we go together and work. I know in my area, there's 2 different American Legions and then our VFW that all work together to have a full complement. So this is also shows you, backs up what General Turner said. Okay, I will continue with my testimony now. As of January 31st, 2024, this fiscal year, Kansas VFW matching funds for the 2024 fiscal year are right now at $272,489.12, or 64.11% of the present grant amount of $425. Yeah, $425,000. And only 25% of that is required. And so you can see we're well ahead of schedule because we believe in showing and giving you what you're paying for. By the end of 2024 fiscal year, Kansas VFW will be at least 125% or higher. With the amount of work being done in our communities and the amount of claims being processed through our service officers, we are proud to announce that the Kansas Legislature, but more importantly, the Kansas taxpayer, is getting their money's worth. And those numbers are listed on the grant reimbursement page that also included with this testimony. And that page shows the amount of monies requested through January 31st of this year. And real quickly, I'd like to do another side note that's not here. Last Tuesday, I don't knock everything over here. Maybe. Last Tuesday, past State Commander Lee Hersey was here with us. And if a person reaches 50%, if a veteran reaches 50% or greater service-connected disabilities, any hospital work or doctor work they have done is fully compensated by the VA. In September, Comrade Hersey was burnt severely. He has already compiled nearly $500,000 in medical bills that have been fully paid by the VA. So right there shows you, because of our VCAP program, even though it doesn't, you won't see it as part of claims received on those monies, that was another $500,000 that was paid for a veteran that he would have had to either have his insurance company pay or he would have had to pay it. And one of my service officers, Michael Ogle, back here gave me that figure this morning because he went and checked it out. But at this time, I just want to say one other thing on the PACT Act numbers. I gave you a figure of 249 million, and the numbers are going up on the claims that we're working. Don't necessarily expect those dollars numbers to go up as rapidly as one would think. We're working many, many more claims, but because of all the advertisements you see on TV, go see a lawyer, and we work 2761 on Claim Sharks. Go see a lawyer. You're eligible. So they're flooding our service. American Legion, VFW, KCVO service officers are getting flooded. But a lot of these aren't eligible for this. We're seeing more and more people, but less and less people because of the advertisement. Hey, I can get rich quick. But they don't fit in the parameters yet. And so we're seeing more people, but for a while, I predict you're going to see the dollars drop a little bit. At least they're not going to go up drastically in comparison with what the number of claims we're seeing. So I could go into more detail. As one of my friends once said, I can talk all day and say nothing, but out of respect to the others that are here to testify, I will conclude my testimony at this time, and I will gladly stand for questions.
We'll ask questions later on. Thank you, Herb.
Yes, sir.
Very much. Next speaker will be Jimmy Foster of the American Legion. Thank you for being here.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. First, I'd like to thank all of you for your continued support to fund the Veterans Service Officers Act since fiscal year 2007. With this funding, it allows the Kansas Department of American Legion to employ 6 service officers and an administrative assistant at all 3 VAMCs in Kansas, and broken down and follows for the American Legion. We have 1 service officer at the Leavenworth office, 2 at the Topeka office, 3 at the Wichita office, of which 1 is now at the new VA regional office that opened up over on Douglas. With the additional $150,000 that you recently approved with the 50-50 split with the VFW, this also allowed us to add an additional service officer at the Leavenworth and the Wichita offices, and to continue to provide wages and the health benefits to all of our employees. There are currently over 275 American Legion posts within the Department of Kansas. These Legion programs and posts have programs that benefit the children of the great state of Kansas, such as Boys State, Girls State, Junior Shooting Sports, oratorical contests, and one of our oldest programs, American Legion Baseball. These posts, as you've heard, also have honor guards that provide burial and military honors to those veterans that depart and report to the Supreme Commander of us all. They also have auxiliary units of these posts that also donate their time, money, and hours to each of the VAMCs across the state Veterans Home, in providing moral support of those veterans and their spouses that are residents at each facility. American Legion Department of Kansas is totally dedicated to the veterans and their families of the great state of Kansas. If additional funds are granted through this program, this will also help to increase our membership, and because of the assistance that is received from one of our department service officers. You heard Herb talk about the statistics and the data. I will not go into that, but I'd like to close to say thank you all for your continued support of the Veterans Claims Assistance Program, commonly known as VCAP, and we'll continue to monitor and use the funds with all the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Turner.
If I may, just a couple of comments sort of close. So just to kind of wrap things up. So from a veteran services perspective too, we have also opened up a couple of facilities out at the Kansas City Community College, as well as at the Johnson County Community College, where we had one location out there with 2 veteran service reps, and they've been vacant for a period of time. We now have 2 different locations out there that Eric has done great work to coordinate and kind of looking to get those resources in place there. So that's been all goodness. And then one last piece that I did want to just understand is, so as these gentlemen spoke about and kind of the return on investment, what these folks provide, I just wanted to share with you some data here. So I'm just taking 3 counties here across the state, some of the larger folks here, but Shawnee County, right now we are tracking in the neighborhood of 13,000 veteran population as of the end of 2021. That's kind of the most recent data I had here right now was 13,000 veterans. Of that, 5,400 are receiving or using benefits. So you're talking about 38%. What that equates to is over $6 million a month, $6 million a month in federal dollars that are being returned into those communities there. If you look over to Leavenworth, again, like with Leavenworth, 58% are receiving benefits. So you have 9,000 veterans there, about 5,800 that are receiving benefits. And that's $6.7 million, $6.7 million. Geary County, again, 35% of the veterans getting benefits. It's a little over a little over $5 million in Geary County. Again, these are dollars that are coming back to our veterans and their families, which in turn are going back out into your communities. We have this data, happy to share. So when folks ask, what can you do for us? Help us get the word out to the veterans in your area. Help to promote what may be eligible. That's not to say, so 30 to 40% are receiving benefits. That doesn't mean automatically the other 60, 65 are eligible for it. But if we can get them in and we can get them to these professionals that can take a look at this, they can help build that narrative for them, help them tell that story and possibly receive benefits that they're eligible for. And that'll help us greatly. But this will help you kind of see your own communities. We're happy to share it with you one-on-one and can do that as well. So again, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the opportunity, and we stand for questions here as a group.
Thank you, General Turner. We do have time for a few quick questions. Do we have any questions? Representative Butler.
General, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your testimony. I'm one of those veterans who didn't take advantage of it when I got out of the Army, because back then it was a little different. I'm working right now trying to get the paperwork put through, trying to find those things done, get everything done. And I wish I'd done it sooner. And I talk to veterans now, young men and women getting out and tell them, go get it done. The one you mentioned, that General, that one of the things that has improved is the staffing in the facilities. And how competitive are your salaries with other competing local community facilities? Or is the salaries, are they competitive, or are they below that, or where are we at on?
So it's largely more competitive. I would tell you that here in the last couple of years, again, because of the salary and wage pieces that were done Eric did work here with our HR folks and with the OPS team, with the governor's office, that we have been able to help to more accurately probably define the position descriptions for these individuals that are out there, which helps to with their kind of their category for pay as it gets reassessed and gets reevaluated. So it has improved. So yes, sir, it is doing much better.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Dodson?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. One of the things I'd like all of us to consider is that, you know, we all have to work this issue together. We've got so many young men and women leaving the service today that don't connect. And, you know, this is causing a lot of issues, psychological issues, some which lead to suicide. And so to the extent we can, you know, we have kind of two tasks here. One is to build our organizations, to build the VFW, to build the American Legion, to build the MOAA. To the extent we can do that, then we can reach out and touch a lot of young men and women that are leaving the service, besides providing the services in the manner that you do already. So I just ask everybody to kind of double your work on doing that. We've been trying this for a long time, and we just need to keep pulling on it and making sure we're doing the best we can. I had a couple real quick questions. I noticed that we have, I think, over 8,000 reservations for cemeteries. And I can remember out at Fort Riley, before I left, we knew that we had no space left. So we built the cemetery there by the airport. But overall, are we in decent shape for the immediate future? That is, do we have kind of a 5 or 10-year horizon here that we can work with?
Yes, sir, we do. We are looking at that. I think we're in good shape right now for the next 5 to 10 years. In that pocket of time, we are having to, at a couple of the cemeteries, expand where they're bringing in some grave liners and things of that nature that were not there presently. But as far as the actual land and property, we are doing very well. And I didn't mention at the end of the month, this month, I'm having the opportunity to go testify to the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs on cemetery operations and support for rural veterans. So it's a great opportunity for us to kind of promote what we're doing in Kansas to the broader audience.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Any questions? Well, thank you, General Turner and Jimmy Foster and Herb Schwarzkopf. Thank you very much for presenting today. We've got to do some business here. Thank you very much. We need to approve the amendments of February 8th meeting. Do I hear a motion to approval? Representative Butler, do I have a second? Representative Thompson, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Nay. Motion passed. Announcements. Next meeting will be February 20th, our last meeting, and we're going to have 2 presenters on homeless vets, one from the VA from Kansas City, one lady from Wichita on her work down there. This time, Representative Dodson has some announcements.
Just to remind, you know, there's a lot of folks who fly in here. Some who jumped out of airplanes. So today is Aviation Day in the Capitol. So I encourage you to go see those folks who have spent some time setting up their displays. I'd love to talk to you, I'm sure. You're probably a little older than they are, but that's okay. The other one is we've got the Civil Air Patrol over at the Celtic Fox. They start 11:45 or 11:30. So I know we're going to be on the floor at 11, but to the extent we can get over there and support those guys, that'd be great. They're going to sponsor a lunch, and I know we've got, I think, at least 4 signed up to go over there and talk with them. And some of you have had experience with the Civil Air Patrol through either yourself or your kids, and they'd also love to see you. Thanks.
Any other information for the committee? If not, the meeting's adjourned.